spread throughout the world because of the trade routes. The English were famous traders, famous adventurers and travellers. Britain's maritime empire and military influence on language, especially after World War II, has consequently been significant, and the colonialisation of Britain, exploration and overseas trade both imported loan words from all over the world. We have they call them loan words, but we actually stole them. Because if you loan something, you give it back. We've never given these words back. Late modern English, 800 to present, was such as shampoo, pajamas, yogurt, and also led to the development of new varieties of English, each with its own nuances of vocabulary, grammar and pronunciation. Here we can talk about one of our ex-colonies was the United States. They created what is known as American English. And in some respects, American English is closer to the English of Shakespeare than the language that we speak. So the Americans speak more like Shakespeare than the English do. Many Americanisms are originally British expressions, and this I didn't know, I honestly didn't know this, that were preserved in the colonies while lost at home. So trash was an English word, but we don't use trash now in England, we use the word rubbish, but they use that original English word in the United States. Native American and Spanish vocabulary have also been a great influence on American English, importing or adopting such words as raccoon, canoe, Mustang, ranch, and vigilante. Next one. Again, American English and other varieties. Again, the colonization around 1600 of North America. But some pronunciation didn't move. It's frozen in the United States. So, and here I repeat the point that the American English is closer to the English of Shakespeare. Okay, the American dialect also served as the root, or route, as they say, of the introduction for many Native American words into the English language. Often named places like Mississippi and Iowa. Yeah? Next one. Okay, American English, other varieties. Indian-sounding names like Idaho were sometimes created and had no Native American roots. Names for other things besides places were also common. Oh, this is repeated, no? Okay, I go to this point here. Likewise, dialects of English have developed in many of the former colonies of the British Empire. Distinct forms of English language, as you may know. English language spoken in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and India, and many other parts of the world. There are, in fact, 125 million people that speak English in India. Here is a world map. The British Empire, but in Victorian times. Here we have Canada, British Guiana, the United Kingdom, India. All this was part of the British Empire. And as you see, England was in fact the owner of 25% of the world, which when you think that England or the United Kingdom can fit into the state of Chihuahua, the whole island can fit there. How they did it, I have no idea how we did it or why we did it, but they did do it. And this was the situation of the British Empire in Victorian times. That's it, no? That's it. Thank you. No criticisms, okay? After.
Bueno, nada más algunos datos sobre el profesor Fisher, ¿sí? Él es, ya se dieron cuenta, originario de Inglaterra, ¿sí? Tiene un diploma en enseñanza de idiomas del CNUNAM, es evaluador del idioma inglés para exámenes oficiales de Cambridge, ¿no? Tiene también diploma en enseñanza de inglés avanzado. Se ha desempeñado como asesor y consultor de lenguas, como profesor de inglés tanto en instituciones educativas como en empresas. Es profesor, o ha sido profesor de literatura inglesa y también ha desempeñado las funciones de traductor. Ha participado en diversos cursos, talleres y seminarios de actualización para la enseñanza del inglés y es autor de 2 libros para enseñanza también del inglés a nivel de secundaria, ¿sí? Editados por Editorial Santillana, Smash 1 y Smash 2. ¿Sí? Okay.
Okay, well, we were discussing a few points about Alan's presentation. I have a few questions. Well, I have one remark which I think is very interesting, and it's that in spite of being grammatically and morphologically and phonetically different, I think that Spanish and English actually share a lot of common characteristics. One bit of information I didn't know, which I found really interesting, is this vowel reform that took place in the 15th
Yeah,
century.
I didn't go into many details of this because one, I'm not a linguist. I'm simply a teacher of English. Yeah, and this was called the Great Vowel Shift. It sounds disgusting, doesn't it? Kind of something to do with the stomach.
I know.
Yeah, so I really wouldn't. I mean, I cannot go into details about that because I saw the research.
Yeah, I know, but well, I think it's interesting anyway, because at some point, well, you know that Spanish, as opposed to Spanish that's spoken in the Americas, has certain very slight pronunciation differences. Have you ever listened to a Spaniard speak?
Yeah.
So they have sounds that we actually do not use in the Americas, not in Mexico, not in anywhere in Latin America. So I suppose that there has to be a reform at some point.
Well, I mean, if the Americans speak more like Shakespeare spoke, then probably the Mexicans may speak the original, more like the original Spanish.
In many ways we do. Yeah.
That you'll probably find out later today, right?
Yeah, and they see that if you go to the States, to places like Santa Fe or places which used to be little towns that they were somewhat cut off from Mexican culture, but they still speak Spanish there. And they speak, well, you cannot say like ancient old Spanish, but it's still Spanish from a couple of centuries ago.
Well, I think
they don't use it anymore.
Well, I'm not an expert on this, but what about the French in Montreal? Has anybody been to Montreal? I mean, I speak very, very little French. But when I went to Montreal, I had been to France before in Paris. I went to Montreal and I found it in many ways, it sounded so, it didn't even sound like French, initially.
It's old French.
It's kind of an old French, but somebody's going to talk about that later.
Another very interesting thing about I found about the English language is that it has a lot of Latin influence.
We are from Rome, and Rome is Latin.
But the interesting thing is that we have very similar words in Spanish and in English. Only our words are in Spanish, and the Latin that is used in English is pure Latin.
Yeah, right.
Because well, of course, there's a French influence, but then I know that Shakespeare used to take a lot of Latin words and try to incorporate it into the English language.
Yeah, I mean, English does take words directly, and we have words directly from Latin that are not touched at all. Status quo, quid pro rata, We just take them directly from Latin and also from French. In English, we don't have a word for fiancé. So we say, she's my fiancé, because sweetheart, oh, this is my sweetheart. I mean, no, you can't say that. You can't say that and keep your masculinity. It's impossible. Or my girlfriend. So we take words directly and we don't anglicize them in any way whatsoever. Yeah, which doesn't happen in Spanish, or does?
No, it doesn't. No, we what do you want to call it?
Spanish.
For example, I don't know the word antena in Spanish, right? We spell it the way it sounds, just like that.
Right.
But in English, it ends with A-E, which is Latin. Yeah. Or, you know, Mexican word that ends with U-S, like, I don't know, cumulus. Radius, like, your home.
Right.
Well, this kind of word, you know, in Spanish it's radio, it's radio, you know. It comes from Latin, but it's not Latin.
Well, it's like the word footballer. How do you spell that in Spanish? F-U-T-B-O-L. I mean, what the hell is that? I mean, with an accent also. I mean, football in English, it means something. It means foot, and ball. But football. But in English, it rarely happens that you would actually do that. You take a word from another language, and then you would pronounce it probably in an English way. I mean, I can think of a French word like fiancé. That would be terrible French pronunciation, right? Fiancé. Comme ci, comme ça. Yeah. So many words you just say. And students find it very difficult. They say, well, we're not learning French, we're learning English. I said, well, if you're an educated English speaker, you would use these French terms. You would use them. Of course, you wouldn't overdo it. Otherwise, people would think, oh my God, you know, who the hell does he think he is? You know? But you certainly would. I mean, I have a lot of French words that I use and try and put my best French pronunciation to. Yeah.
Well, there are a couple more points I discussed.
Oh, don't tell me to wait until this guy arrives.
Yeah.
Okay, get comfortable, take out your beers, okay? Yeah, get comfortable. This could take a moment, can't it?
So I think in spite of English being like the standardized language, you know, that is spoken worldwide, it still has a very rich ancestry. I mean, you have the Celts and you have the French and you have Normans and Norse and, you know, so many different influences, right? Whereas Spanish is made essentially of Latin, a little Greek, a little Arab. Well, then of course you have all the influence from cultures from the Americas. So this is actually kind of a personal question. How do you feel as an Englishman, having that much, you know, ancestry? I mean, I know you're half Mexican by now, but
yeah, I'm like roast beef with nopales. I mean, it's that odd combination. Yeah. Well, I'm not a patriot at all. I mean, I am not. I was born in England. I'm English, and that's it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what can you do? I mean, I can't change nationality. Yeah? But I do accept that the English are a nation of pirates.